It is June 19th, 2025, and people are seeing a strange UFO shaped like a jellyfish over California. This is Inverted World Live. Welcome back, my friends. I'm your host, Shane Cashman, and this is Inverted World Live. We are glad you are here again with us at this wonderful late hour at 10 o'clock. I am joined by Brandon. What's up?
What's up, everybody? What's up, Shane?
Man, it's the end of the week for us. It's wild. These days have been flying by. This is a call-in show. Our phone lines are open. If you had a strange encounter with something you just can't explain, if you've seen something weird, shadow people, aliens, demons, possessions, werewolves, you name it, cryptids, give us a call. The link to call in is pinned in the chat below on Rumble and YouTube. So we're going to be here till tonight is going to be a short night, and I am sorry for that, but I have to hop in my UFO to fly to Florida for a show that I'm doing. I'll be hosting a show at the Joke Joint with Sam Tripoli, the great Sam Tripoli, and the great Owen Benjamin, who will be headlining each night. Sam on the first night, Owen on the second night, and friends of the show, Top and Raven, are hosting that from Nephilim Death Squad. They've been on this show a few times. So looking forward to that. So we're going to get into callers a little sooner, go through some things, but I did want to say it is Juneteenth, and it's not what you think. Happens to be my anniversary at this job. 4 years, I think. That 4 years flew by. It was the day that Tim Pool decided to take a chance on me and fly me down to West Virginia from New York. And it couldn't have happened at a better time in my life. I had just, the world had just shut down the year prior. I was forced out of my job as a teacher, which I was grateful for because I wasn't going to get the things they wanted me to take. So lost my job. My wife lost her job for not getting the things they wanted her to take to keep that job. So we had nothing and 2 kids and a house to pay for. So I wanted to say really quick before I continue, thank you to everyone who's joining us from IRL. That's awesome that you're here. I am just now telling the story of my anniversary at this job, which happens to be on Juneteenth, the day that I was set free. So this was the day 4 years ago. Had nothing. My wife had lost her job for COVID, not getting the shot. Me as well. And flew down here and took a chance. They took a chance on me, and I'm very grateful. Gave me this great opportunity. Changed my life. Got to do all these amazing things. Travel the country, and do all these wild stories. Do this show. Talk to all you people. Do all these shows like Pop Culture Crisis and Tim's shows. So very, very grateful for them. Very grateful for Tim for giving me this opportunity, and for all you guys for tuning in all these years. It's crazy. There's 2 books now for Inverted World Live, and we're on episode, 62 at this point? Mm-hmm. 60, that's insane to me. So yeah, thank you all for joining me on this anniversary episode. So with that in mind, we got some jellyfish to talk about. There was a mysterious jellyfish floating above California today. And I was getting some texts from friends who are freaked out. They're like, what is this thing? It can't be just a space rocket. They're telling me it looked different because it had this like snake-like movement through the sky. And they did want it to be an alien, but I don't think that was the case. I think it was a SpaceX rocket. And let's pull up that article and break this down. But there are other jellyfish UFOs out there that we can certainly look at and discuss. But this is this was on June 17th. Mysterious jellyfish UFO spotted over U.S. desert as scientists reveal its origin. And this is from the Daily Mail. A strange jellyfish-like phenomenon was spotted streaking across the California sky Monday night. While the unusual UFO sighting baffled many locals from the Mojave Desert to Los Angeles' South Bay, scientists say there were no extraterrestrials involved in creating the jellyfish. It was an Elon Musk rocket, which could also mean it is alien, because I do think he might be extraterrestrial. SpaceX's latest Falcon 9 rocket mission lifted off at 11:36 p.m. Eastern Time Monday from Vandenberg Space Force Station in California. A few minutes into the flight, the rocket's exhaust interacted with the atmosphere, creating a visible cloud of condensed water vapor. Since the launch took place right after sunset around 8:36 p.m., the sun illuminated the crystallized exhaust plume, resulting in a spectacular sight for millions on the ground. Now take a look at this. That is a wild thing to see. And, you know, it's funny, last night, Brandon and I were talking about how weird it is to see the Starlink go up into space. And that's a weird thing. But this is even weirder. Because it does look like certain things we've seen from other videos where people claiming UFOs or even some sort of asteroid, you know, like the ones in Russia from like 10 years ago. Those were wild videos. But I'll go on. Californians posted images of the rocket soaring over the state on X, even as far south as Riverside, over 200 miles southeast of the Vandenberg launch site. SpaceX's lead avionics systems engineer Cameron Gable captured the jellyfish phenomenon as the rocket traveled past Los Angeles County's South Bay. So there you have it. That might not have been a UFO. It has been identified. But it doesn't mean that there are other things out there that look like jellyfish that we just don't understand. So let's pull up the video, Brandon. I sent it. It's the UFO caught on cam. Leaked video shows jellyfish UAP allegedly flying over U.S. military base. And this was from a year ago. This is in 2024. Let's take a look at this.
Is it this? Is it the one that we have pulled up here, or is it the Pentagon one?
I think this is it.
Or did I miss one?
Oh, it's on YouTube at the Economic Times.
Let me see what this one is really quick, because this is another one.
I think that's the one from yesterday.
Fairing
But worth
separation
watching.
confirmed.
And they even have comms for mission control. I mean,
And there you see it there. That's the jellyfish that we were looking for. A really nice view of the burn of the second
Okay, so he
stage. You're
even
seeing
said
that's
They even call it
Jellyfish.
jellyfish.
left-hand
I don't
side
think
of
it's
your
very
screen.
jellyfishy.
You can see the reflection
I think the one
from
we're going to
two
watch
yellow
next is more
bearing
jellyfishy.
it's just because it
There's
gets
two
that
dots
round
in the middle there.
kind of silhouette
Yeah.
around it that opens up, and it
You're
looks
seeing
like a
the
jellyfish
first
swimming
stage
forward,
booster
kind of.
Yeah.
I don't think they're
with
really
those
counting the tail.
occasional puffs. Those are the
Even though
cold
the
gas
tails are kinda
thrusters
derivative too,
as
but-
the booster
Yeah.
is reorienting itself.
Yeah, let's go to that other video.
Oh my god.
Right.
All right, so this, I'm wondering if I completely missed
Let me see.
one of these articles that you sent me.
It was just beneath the mysterious jellyfish UFO. It is a YouTube link to UFO caught on camera.
Flying over military.
But they might play it
base.
on this one too. From News Nation, who has been on top of UFO news in the past few years.
So the latest UFO video flying around the internet has
they
a
must play it.
lot of people, pilots and experts, wondering what it is, if it's anything. What is it? The Pentagon was no help. All it said was no comment, and it won't verify the authenticity of the footage. Notice it didn't debunk it, but as it's done with other such incidents, the man who released the video says the video was shot over an American military base by military pilots, and that man is Jeremy Corbell, one of the all-stars at the UFO community. He released the video, and he's given us even more tonight to show us. Jeremy, good to have you back on the show. So the Pentagon says it won't comment on the authenticity
Do not try to
of the
rob this
alleged
man.
DoD
He has a
material
very
that may have
large and
been leaked.
impressive
That's
safe.
a quote right there.
He also has a
While
typewriter.
At the same time saying it's committed to openness and accountability. How do you square those?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And I'm glad your viewers are curious and listening to this. So look, Elizabeth, everybody is catching up with my and George Knapp's reporting, as has been the trend. The DoD is catching up. Even News Nation and yourself, who have been fastidious with looking into the UFO issue, everybody is catching up.
Quick
So
little
let me help you
backhand there.
tonight. The reason why they're not at this point able
Yeah,
to
that's what
deny
I was gonna
it
show
is
people.
because absolutely they're going to have to confirm it. George Knapp and I worked for 3.5 years to develop new sources and people that came to us with these
Are we
leaks.
alone?
Multiple
You can pause it there.
Kind of looks like one of those guys on the like the propulsion hovercrafts that they built with
Yep.
the hoses.
Yep.
Like it looks like he's just that's just a guy testing like
It'll-
a floating mech suit.
It also looks like the floaters I have in my eyes. You have those? They, like,
yeah.
drift around.
You should probably see your physician.
I have. They're like, there's nothing we can do. You just have UFOs in your eyes, brother.
Terrible.
So the Pentagon did actually leave like a comment on this, and it said the DoD takes public interest in unidentified anomalous phenomena seriously and is committed to openness and accountability to the American people. Their statement said, "This commitment must be balanced with the department's obligation to protect sensitive information, sources, and methods." This article is also from News Nation. It went along with this video. "The object, which does resemble a jellyfish, can be seen on video moving through a sensitive military installation before moving over water, where it began what Corbell describes, who was in that video, as a controlled descent before submerging." So like some of those Tic Tac videos out there where they come out of the ocean or go into the ocean.
Or lunar modules,
Yep.
before they land.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to say we think we know the Pentagon has been lying about a lot of alien stuff to cover for certain secret technology that they have that they don't want us to know about. My gut says that's what this is. Like, we know the jellyfish people saw the other day in California was a Falcon 9 rocket. And if you can find just the image of the Falcon 9 rocket so we can
You know what I think we're going to get from this?
What do you think?
Nothing to see here, folks. Just a training exercise.
That's right.
100%.
That's right.
I'm calling it now.
Look at this thing.
The Falcon 9.
This is what Elon, I think, threatened to stop using when he and President Trump had a little falling out because they use it. I think they use it.
Oh, is
to
that
help.
what he said he was stopping production on, but then he didn't?
Yeah, I think they made up. But the Falcon 9 is a reusable two-stage rocket designed and manufactured by SpaceX for the reliable and safe transport of people and payloads into Earth orbit and beyond.
This is the one that can come back and redock too, right?
I believe so. I thought that one might have different name.
First orbital class rocket capable of reflight. So that suggests that it can land and take off again.
Right. Yeah. It says reusability allows SpaceX to refly. Yeah. Which is crazy stuff. And that one blew up the other day. That might have been yesterday.
This is pretty interesting, actually, right here. This count. They have a ticker for how many completed missions, landings, and total reflights they've had, and you can see there's definitely a margin of error happening there.
Oh yeah.
But the one statistic I want to see is attempted missions.
Right.
Because I actually would be curious to know how many of these things they've blown up in our atmosphere.
I mean, there's definitely been a few we've seen. They consider it a success because they're doing their training and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's a wild thing to see, and it goes into a lot of this. This isn't secret tech, but this is beyond what a lot of people are doing. Obviously, with the refly stuff, and people seeing the sky, they're shocked. It's a shocking thing to see if you're not like expecting it, especially with the way people are seeing it. We saw in that first article, it kind of has this snaky, winding pattern through the sky. But just to connect that before we get to callers, again, for those who are joining us, our phone lines are open. The link to call in is pinned in the chat below. You can call in, tell us a strange story, give us some thoughts on anything we've been talking about, jellyfish UFOs, SpaceX, space in general. What are your thoughts? But anything. There's no real theme. If you have any encounter or sleep paralysis, astral projection, give us a call. We're going to be here till 11 tonight, a little short of a show because I have to fly in my SpaceX rocket to Florida to do a show tomorrow. But before we get to that, also I just want to remind everyone, please like, share, subscribe. It's been really, really, really helping this show. Seriously, the past few weeks have been amazing, and we are very, very grateful for you guys for doing that. But just to connect all this and a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, Space Force, SpaceX, the surveillance state, stuff like that, this was just in the news. This is from Breaking Defense. This is that Space Force article. Space Force is contracting with SpaceX, that shouldn't surprise anybody, for new secretive Milnet SATCOM network. So we're going to be seeing a lot more stuff going up into the sky. The Milnet contract with SpaceX is being paid for by the Space Force, but managed by the National Reconnaissance Office, sources said. The Space Force in contracting with SpaceX for a new government-owned, contractor-operated satellite communication constellation in low Earth orbit, also known as LEO, called Milnet, that eventually will be integrated into the service's grand plan for a hybrid mesh network, which is in quotes, that's what they call it, combining commercial and Defense Department satellites, a senior Space Force official revealed today. Milnet is onboarding to the United States Space Force through SSC, Space System Command, right now, but specifically to Delta 8, and we are completely relooking at how we're going to operate that constellation of capabilities for the Joint Force, which is going to be significant because we've never had a DoD hybrid mesh network at LEO, said Colonel Jeff Weissler. He's the Delta 8 commander. This is them building out something I think is going to be fascinating and horrifying potentially, and it's going to help with their defense, obviously, but the Golden Dome they've been talking about, the surveillance state that we've talked about. Again, I'll point you back to episode 50, which feels like forever ago, but it wasn't that long ago when we kind of broke down what the tech companies are building with the help of the government. A lot of that stuff a lot of that $500 billion went to OpenAI to build infrastructure in Texas, but there's clearly a lot of people like SpaceX who are getting money from the government. Elon's a defense contractor, has been since about 2002 to build this stuff, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. At a certain point, I think we're going to have like 100,000 of these satellites in the sky in low Earth orbit. That's quite a lot, and we already have a ton of satellites, spy satellites, doing heat mapping, which is like they can map the whole Earth in real time, basically, so they can rewind anything in real time, which is interesting because it's like it's almost like they allow things to happen, in my opinion, because they can see everything. Lockheed Martin has the satellites up there. You can go look them up. The ones that say, nothing is beyond our reach, or the better the devil you know. And those, I don't know those in particular, but a lot of those spy satellites through Lockheed Martin are operated using Starlink.
Dude, that's crazy because they could use a natural disaster as just a test simulation.
Oh yeah.
It's just, just let it happen.
I mean,
we want to see how this plays out.
It's a horrible thought to consider, but I do think that is the case. That's one of the more interesting things out of what Ashton Forbes talks about. I mean, we've had him on the show. I did a Culture War episode with him. I love talking to him. I do have my reservations about the video and its authenticity in regards to the air flight being sucked into a black hole or like a wormhole that was opened up with those 3 orbs. But that's not to say I don't think the government does work on things that might do that, right? But what me and him talked about the very first time on the Culture War that he came back on Inverter World and talked about is this idea of the spy satellites, Lockheed Martin, global heat mapping, nothing is beyond their reach, and that they must know everything happening in real time. Especially if you think how they're all hooked up to AI now. So it's being observed by these machines, and there's some tripwire going off to be like, hey, over here this is happening, over here this is happening. And they let it happen, and that they're becoming this like false omniscience. Well, it's really actually omniscience. It's a false god, a lower G god that they've built. That, in my opinion, could really be used against us in the future when you think about the way they're going to build out things like these predictive crime units, pre-crime, where they can decide who does what when, based on their algorithm, based on the things they look at. I really want to keep my eye and all of our eyes on stuff like that as it's accelerating right now, right before our very eyes. The Falcon 9, that's a different story, but Starlink for sure, their contracts are just ballooning with the government. And, I want to trust Trump to do the right thing, but whoever's in next, I don't know if I'll trust them. I really don't trust anybody, to be honest with you.
That's my thing.
And even though I voted for the guy, I think he's surrounded by people who do want this dystopian police state that has this giant eye on everything at all times, which is against humanity. And it's not human, anti-human. And they're going to sell it to you as for all the good reasons of stopping, a lot of, whether it's immigration on a lower level or like war stuff. But you know how that can be manipulated into the future and turned into a social credit system inside of the surveillance state underneath the Golden Dome. So yeah, it's just interesting to me that this is all breaking news right now, kind of going underreported, but this is very important stuff because this is the future of how they're going to deal with us and our so-called enemies. So keep an eye on all that stuff. Do we have callers? Anyone?
We have one.
All right. So we will go to a caller. And again, if you guys are just now tuning in, joining us from IRL, thank you for being here. The link to call in is below, pinned to the chat in Rumble and YouTube. It's audio only. So come on in, tell us a story. We have heard some wild stories the past few weeks. It is amazing. And it's like something's going on. Whether it's all just military tech that we can't understand, but it goes deeper than that with these more spiritual things people can't explain, whether it's in their nightmares or these astral projections, cryptids they'd seen in their neighborhoods, in their yards. People are having these shared experiences we can't explain. And maybe we could write it off by being like, it's just something, it's our perception, and it's a way we're interpreting our surroundings, which is for sure that happens. It's happened to me. And maybe I'll tell one of those stories today if I have time. So, I take it all with both those. I use both sides of my brain, the more like schizophrenic side of my brain and the side that is semi-grounded in reality, which is pretty tough to pin down. But yeah, let's go to a caller.
All right. So I am going to bring back Gian Gordon.
All right.
Who I believe we spoke to the other
We
night.
did.
He was in here last night. I wasn't able to get to him, so let's get him in here now. Gian.
Oh, yo. All right, give me like 30 seconds. I'm going to see if I can connect my headphones real quick.
Sure.
All right. So for those who were here the other night, Gian called in. We had a good talk about morality, right?
Yeah.
Good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
Our difference of opinions on that. And it was a really interesting, in-depth conversation. So we'll see if he's got something new to add.
And while we got a second too, a little treat for all the old school fans in the house. Next Monday and Tuesday, IWL's very own Alex Ayala will be back in the chair.
Yeah.
Filling in for me. So make sure you tune in, show her some love in chat. She has graciously volunteered to fill in for me for 2 days while I'm at home crying like a baby with post-tooth surgery antics.
Imagine we should have had you just on screen dealing with it.
I remember I was telling
Sounds
you Michael
horrible.
Jordan flu game. I was
right.
like, he played with the flu. I should just come in and deal with it. But I would basically just be sitting here like,
Yeah, no, you can't do it.
I think Tim was doing that
It's
for
the
a while
worst.
with his thing.
Yep, that's the worst. I've had teeth issues, and it is terrible.
It sucks.
Agreed.
Gian, what's up?
Headphones didn't work out, but that's
It's all good.
yeah, so I thought a lot about our conversation on morality the following day, and I wrote out this thought experiment and kind of went back and thought about my ideas on determinism, because you asked me about that a couple times, and
Yeah.
I do have like an opinion on determinism, and that kind of goes with the philosophy I was talking about. So
Yeah, let's hear it.
thought about it and wrote some stuff down. However, I have a more interesting story, and I want to share that one today, because I think you guys will definitely find it interesting, and then it sets a basis for a lot of my beliefs.
Okay, awesome.
It'll be fun.
Let's hear it.
All right. So this story is, I've looked up trying to find other people who've experienced something similar, and people who say they've experienced ego death is the most similar to what I've experienced. Have you heard of ego death before?
Yep.
So this is my ego death story.
Okay.
So I was in college. I did 1 semester in college, and before class, I was smoking some weed with some friends, and I was trying a nectar collector for the first time. I can explain that if you want, but it's not necessarily important.
I have no idea what that is.
I know exactly what it is.
No idea what that is.
Feel free to go on.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure the first time I smoked weed was less than a year prior to this experience. And I've had significant similarities in other times of being high, notably the first time I got high and smoked weed. So anyways, this time I was in college, I got stoned, and I said bye to my friends, and I was heading to class. That's the last thing I remember before waking up, not knowing who or where or when I was. The first thing that connected me with my reality was the rings I was wearing on my fingers. Each ring was given to me by a different person in my life. When I went to college, like as I was leaving high school, I asked a couple of my friends, hey, like, you got any rings? Can I have one? And when I saw those, it brought back memories of who I was and everything surrounding my identity. And slowly, from seeing the rings, everything else fell back into place. So what happened to my body during this experience isn't video recorded, but I've tried to piece together what I could from asking people who, oh shoot, damn, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have an important call I got to take real quick.
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
fine. I
Yeah.
actually, in the meantime, I want to explain to our viewers who might not know what ego death is. It refers to the
Perfect.
disappearance of an individual's sense of self or the removal of one's perception of oneself as separate from one's environment. It is also clarified as a temporary state of autobiographical amnesia where you cannot remember any information about yourself. Process of dissolving the ego, allowing a higher level of consciousness, and the replacement of the self of self with a more complete understanding of reality. Dissolving your sense of identity, including beliefs, opinions, and ideologies.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced that?
I have not. I can't say that I've ever been that high.
So I will preface this by saying, don't do drugs. But I did a lot of mushrooms in high school and college.
I feel like those will do it to you.
And I don't know if I would say it was ego death. I'll try to say this before John comes back. But like the first time I did it, I got that feeling that I've heard people describe as the fear where you take something and you know at a certain point there's no going back. You're going over the cliff of whatever you just taken. And so that was my first time. About 30 minutes into it, I pass out like sweating. And I wake up, I think immediately, not really sure. And I'm in the out my parents' house, which is in the woods. No one's there except for two friends, and I can't see. Everything is actually upside down, which is funny now that I host a show called Inverted World. But literally everything was upside down.
Ba-doom-doom.
Yep. And according to my friends, I was speaking like total gibberish, and I had that feeling like what John was just saying of I have no idea who I am, where am I, what am I, and I needed things to ground me. So I was looking around like frantically in the house for like these things to actually like be an anchor back to reality, and that worked. It was fine. And a few other times in other situations, the same thing happened to me with other people, and they'd say like, "Hey, that was weird. Maybe you shouldn't do this," and they're probably right. But yeah, I had that experience a few times, exactly the same. And I don't do any of that stuff anymore. It's been a very, very long time since I've done it. And I don't know why I continue to do it after those first few times. But I totally know what he's talking about. It's like you almost feel like you're lost in space inside of your own body. Your vision is totally, at least in my case, my vision was totally messed up. Everything was literally upside down. At one time when I was at college, it was also, oddly enough, my first semester at college. I did it. It was in the woods, and I remember the street lights actually being upside down. It was very bizarre, very unnerving feeling, and again, was speaking in weird ways. So I don't know what was going on there, and I don't know if I'd call it was an ego death, but it certainly changed the way I view everything.
And I don't think it really would be either. I mean, it sounds like he's kind of classifying his more as that, and maybe it was for his part, but like this is the kind of stuff when you're younger that will really get you back to this kind of primeval state where you're asking like, who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? Yep. But it's also sometimes you'll just find yourself in a room in front of the computer screen laughing at the Badgers and Snakes video.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me. Anyway.
I liked when it was like that. And those other experiences were just it was dark. It was very dark and strange. And it didn't happen to anyone else. Maybe I was taking too much, which is also possible. So here, Gian, is that him?
Yeah, that's me. I'm back.
What's up, man?
Thank you.
So of course. So you were saying,
excuse me. Right. So last thing I said is that I looked at my rings, and that brought me back to my identity.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to my body during this blackout isn't video recorded, but I pieced together what I could from asking people the people who found me and my friends who saw me leave the dorm room where I last remembered being. So I believe I blacked out for about 10 to 15 minutes. The last thing I remember was the door of the dorm. However, I ended up underneath the back bumper of a car in the parking lot of that dorm that I smoked in. So it would have taken, a couple days later, I went back to the dorm and I retraced the steps to where I was found. And I figured out it would have taken about 60 to 120 seconds to make it to where I passed out on the ground from the dorm room. And I know when my class was, like when I was expected to leave. So I know approximately when I left the dorm, and I know when I was discovered under the car because they took a picture of me and posted it on Snapchat.
Oh,
and by the time I woke up, I'd say it was about 10 to 15 minutes had passed from when I left the dorm, like the last time I remembered being aware. However, during that short amount of time I spent passed out under the car, which was probably closer to like 8 minutes or less, I lived multiple different lives. Some completely through, others just parts of their lives.
do you want to explain?
After-
Sorry, do you want to
I
explain
do.
some of those?
I was pausing because it's a story. So if there's anything you guys have any questions about, feel free to jump in. I have it written down, so my thoughts will stay on track.
Yeah, cool. So that's awesome. Thank you for doing that. And yeah, if you can remember those lives and stuff, maybe walk us through some of them.
Yeah, I'll just continue here. After I blacked out looking at the dorm room door, I was unconscious. My body was without my conscious, and my conscious was without my body. When I became aware again, everything was blackness, and I had no form. So what I'm telling you now is what I experienced while I was blacked out. I didn't know if I could see, but I could sense the void I was in. Kind of like the difference between being in a completely dark room with your eyes open versus your eyes closed. You just kind of know there's a difference. So I didn't know where I was, who I was, why I was, and it was very frustrating. I quickly was resistant against my existence. It felt uncomfortable. Then I noticed the direction my reactions were leading me, which was permanent discomfort. So I tried to slow my frustration and just kind of think, just like stop reacting as quickly. And I went through what I could sense. So as I was thinking, I went through what I could sense, and I came to the conclusion that I was experiencing. And although I didn't have any other information or feedback, I accepted that I was experiencing. Or I accepted that what I was experiencing was my experience. Even though it was uncomfortable, even though I thought my existence was different from my expectations, which in the moment I had no concept for my expectations, though I had them, I could at least experience what I was experiencing, and that would be something. That would be like a point of reflection, kind of.
And so like these are kind of vague terms, like what do you mean by something and experience? Are you seeing yourself in the situation from out of body experience? I know you said it was the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Can you like kind
So
of like
I don't
try to
see.
peel that back?
I have seen nothing.
Okay.
I have felt nothing at this moment. All I am aware of is that I'm thinking things and that I exist somewhere, because in order to think something, there like must be some type of existence.
So you're describing a kind of I am situation.
Exactly.
Is what it sounds like. So, but you at the same time you had accepted the fact that that was your current state, and even though you were uncomfortable with it, you had accepted it. And I mean, does that suggest that you weren't really too worried about coming back?
Well, I hadn't accepted it yet, but that comes right now.
Okay.
So at that point, I began to stop resisting. Slowly, I relinquished my will and my thoughts, for the most part, to be more at equilibrium in my environment of nothingness. At some point, I started to notice a sphere. This is a shift. So I'll let you, since I kind of answered your question there. Do you have another question about my what I just said?
I was going to ask about this. Well, yeah.
No, yeah,
for
go
it.
ahead.
I was going to ask like if you could describe the sphere, like what that's about.
I will. And that's, I just wanted to pause there for a moment before I continue.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So at some point, I started to notice a sphere. The middle of the sphere was centered at the bottom of my vision, and it took up at least like 65% of my vision, like from the bottom going up. And this was the first time I remember seeing anything. So imagine holding a perfectly smooth basketball a few inches away from your bottom lip, and that's about the perspective I had. I don't remember initially how I noticed the sphere. I think it developed as I was thinking more in line with the place I was in. But at a certain point, I noticed the sphere was not stationary. Well, I noticed the sphere, and then I also noticed it was not stationary. It was rotating as though it was rolling towards me at a constant speed, maybe like 8 to 10 miles an hour. But it was huge. Like, I don't know how big I was. I don't know how big it was, but from my perspective, it was huge. So maybe it was faster. And as I would think things, the sphere would change color and it would emit spikes, kind of like an equalizer, like when you're watching like a bass equalizer for music as the yeah. So depending on the color of the sphere, I would feel different sensations. When the sphere was red, I would feel pain, extreme pain, and the spikes would jut out sharp and jagged. But if the sphere was blue or green, I did not feel pain. And honestly, I don't remember what else I would feel other than pain, but I knew I wanted to avoid red at all costs. Because, am I allowed to curse?
Go for it.
Because that shit sucked. It was excruciatingly painful and exhausting. Though I didn't have a body, whenever the sphere changed from red to something else, I had the urgency of relief you feel when you need to breathe after emerging from water.
Yep.
And this was all developing in a way that was sequential, but not linear. Like I can think back and remember, but in the moment, that was not a concept. I was just in it, I was surviving. So I don't know how long anything took. There was nothing to reference how long anything took or how long I experienced anything. So as I was getting accustomed to my existence of this rotating sphere causing pain, but it also linked with my thoughts, it was a back and forth. The sphere would influence me, and I would react and think, which influenced the sphere, which influenced me. And it was this back and forth going on. When suddenly my vision and existence was sucked into the sphere, and I found myself inside the body and mind of a human being. It was like I was an observer that could see everything the humans saw, and I could feel what they felt. I understood their motivations. I knew every memory and thought and bias that led them to this point. It's as though I was them. However, there was a separate voice, if you will, that said, "This is not me." Or maybe more accurately, the voice was saying, "This is not us." But with no control or ordinance, I just resided to going through this experience. Kind of like my experience before the sphere, like when I was like, okay, I'm in blackness, this is my experience. And after time being in that body, I would meld and I would live their life until eventually I would be sucked back to the perspective in front of the sphere, and I would be there back at that existence before plunging into the sphere again in a different existence. The most notable life I lived was a woman that I lived her life from birth until death at old age. I don't know why this one stands out, but it's the only thing, or it's the only one that I can distinctly remember anything about now. I entered her consciousness when she was born, and everything was the same as the rest. I knew I was not her, accepting my existence as an observer, melding with the identity, and then living her life. However, after some years, maybe in her 20s or 30s, my voice started to get softer, and I stopped remembering I was different from the life I was living. And I forgot about myself. I forgot about the sphere. I forgot about all the other lives I'd lived. And I thought I was her. By the end of her life at 70 or 80, I was her, and I forgot about myself. Then when she dies, I zoomed back out to the sphere, and I remember thinking, bro, what the fuck? Like, aren't we done? Why am I back here? Like, I thought I left this place. And that's when I realized the system taking place of living a life, then returning to the sphere and repeat. So I don't know at what point I experienced that life, but I think it was somewhere in the middle. And that's most of the experience while I was blacked out. And then if you remember, I said when I woke up, I didn't know who I was, where I was, when I was. I don't even know if I knew I was a human. So I opened my eyes, finally. The people who found me under the car, they tried waking me up for like 5 minutes. I would wake up and then pass back out. So it just so happened that my buddy JC was walking by, and he was my best friend at the time. We went to middle school, high school, we did band together. We went to the college together. We were roommates. So if there's anyone I should have recognized in that moment, it was this motherfucker. But when I finally stayed awake, I didn't recognize him. I opened my eyes, I looked straight at him, and then I looked around at everyone else because nothing was familiar. And as I was trying to take in my surroundings to figure out what was happening, I looked at my hands at some point, and on my hands, I was wearing rings that my friends gave me when I went to college. And after seeing those rings, floods of memories came rushing in about where I got the rings, who gave it to me, why they gave it to me, other things about those people. And then the next time I looked at JC, I asked him, JC? And my identity started to form again. And it's been that way ever since, pretty much.
And you were just smoking weed?
Yeah.
Anyone put anything else
I've
in
wondered
it?
about that as well, and I just wrote a little thing about that too because I was telling someone else about
I've got
this.
people in chat asking where you got it and where
Maybe
they
they
can get some.
sprinkled something else on
Okay,
there.
so someone was like, "Man, that's crazy. Maybe you smoked DMT or salvia or something. Like that's pretty wild."
Yeah.
And I've also wondered. I looked this up extensively. I wanted to know like what the fuck was that, and I want to know who, like if anybody else had something similar. And I believe the conditions that allowed me to experience this were extreme stress, existential crisis, lack of daily nutrition, lack of hydration, and then I got stoned as fuck.
Yeah, I'm sure that could do a lot of that to a person. And John, real quick, I just want to acknowledge everyone who's just now joining us. Thank you for meeting us here from IRL. Appreciate you guys joining us. We talked about UFOs, jellyfish in the sky, SpaceX, the surveillance state, and now we're talking to Gian, who had an ego death experience. And I'm about to ask some questions real quick. I'm curious. Okay, so for those who are just joining us, John just told us that after an experience, were you smoking a bowl here or like
So I can
double
explain
Dutch
that,
blunt?
because I think it is important.
That was a
It was the
nectar
first time I had
collector,
Oh,
smoked
I don't know
this
what that
way.
is. That's right.
Yeah, it's an extract tool basically.
So a nectar collector is basically just a glass tube, and you heat up the bottom really hot. And then when the glass comes in contact with wax, it immediately vaporizes the wax.
It's like new wave freebasing, basically.
So you
Sheesh.
you can get it's a hot hit, and you can get a lot at once. Because
So it's strong.
And it's concentrate, so yeah, it's a lot stronger than
Yeah,
just
like
your average.
where I grew up, it was just, and I don't do this at all anymore, but it was like vanilla Dutches cracked open, and then you sprinkle in the horrible seed weed we got from Newburgh, New York. But what I wanted to ask you, and again, for those who are just now tuning in, Gian just told us about being in this dark place, kind of like this floating consciousness, and then a sphere appears in this place he's in, and he then enters. He's lived multiple different lives in this scenario, but one in particular that stands out is a woman whose consciousness you entered, and you said you basically lived inside her brain from birth to death, right? To sum it
Correct.
up. So,
and not just death, an old age death.
right. So like that's a long life. And you also, it's worth noting that you kind of forgot you were yourself while in there after a while, right?
Correct. Which was different from some of the lives I lived, because sometimes I would pop into an existence, I would pop into someone's consciousness, and I would be there for less than a year, let's say. And it was different each time. So that one, there might have been others I lived from birth to death, but that one is the one I remembered that I
Okay.
forgot about the sphere.
So this is the question I have, and it applies to any of the ones you remember, and the
Mhm.
woman in particular. Did at any point they realize that there was another consciousness in their brain?
Not that I know of, no.
And were you at all interfering with their consciousness and driving them?
No.
So
I
you were
had
like a
no
passenger.
ability to act in any way.
So just an observer. Like you said an observer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's
But
interesting.
it's not an observer that is only looking. It's an observer that is receiving all information.
In what regard? Like just from her life, like her surroundings, but also her thoughts?
Correct. So like think of all the information you receive as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I was receiving all of that information.
Okay. That is, yeah, that's wild. So from experiencing that, you think you had this ego death experience because you kind of like had this fractured experience?
So the ego death part is because when I woke up, let's say, in my body, in Gion's body, the body that I live in now, the consciousness I have now, I was unaware.
Mm-hmm.
And what brought me awareness and context was, first of all, the rings on my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Those rings brought me stories and memories. And after that, everything I've experienced has also brought me stories and memories. So the ego death is that all the lives I lived before I woke up right now are just as valid as the life I'm living now.
Mm-hmm.
The life I lived in that woman, when I thought I was her, I forgot
Right.
about the sphere. It was just as valid at the time as my life is now.
Right.
So like it's not that I think I'm going back to the sphere at some point, but I'm saying that that possibility is just as valid to me as anything else.
Yeah, I can see that. And it sounds like a humbling experience.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other callers real quick before I ask another question?
We have a few, yeah.
Okay, so again, John, I just want to ask you one quick question because for those who are also just now tuning in, we're doing a shorter show tonight because I got to head out to host a show tomorrow. But do you think, Gian, that after that experience, you think there's other consciousnesses living inside of our brains or yours right now?
I can answer that quickly, and thanks for letting me tell that story. I know I talk long and slow.
No, it's all good.
So I think consciousness is something that is kind of like streamed to us. And when consciousness is not in an individual, consciousness is a hive mind, like a collective consciousness. So what we experience as an individual consciousness is like a kind of an extension of the connected consciousness.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, I have my different opinions about all that we kind of talked about the other day in terms of the uniqueness of people. But I also think there is some sort of larger mesh of consciousness that people are tapping into, that you can't deny, you know? And I think things like social media accelerate that idea. You can see it happen in real time, you know, people having like the same idea at the same time. It's weird. It's weird, but your experience is a much different one and a spiritual one. But I appreciate you calling in. We're going to take another caller and call back when you can, and we'll get into the other conversation as well. It's always fun talking.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we'll try to get another caller in before I hop in the UFO. I will be hosting Bohemian Grove tomorrow at the Joke Joint. Sam Tripoli, Owen Benjamin, the Nephilim Death Squad. It's going to be a really fun show. I'm going to be opening it up with an hour, and everyone else, conspiracy hour after me. It's going to be a lot of fun. So tune into that. I'll be on Rumble.
All right, Chris, I'm going to bring you on. I see you in chat here. Let's grab you and have you close out the show. If you've got a microphone. I do not see a microphone for you, sir.
Hello, is it me you're looking for? No mic? Man. Is that something like on his end that he needs to have a mic hooked up or something?
Yeah. All right, you're going back.
We'll try again, sir, while we do this. And I'll try to tell this story really quick that I was reminded of earlier, just thinking about people confusing things for UFOs. I was always skeptical of UFOs, and I grew up near a military base where a lot of people said they saw a lot of things. One night, I was sober. I was coming home from a show. This is like 15 years ago that my band had played. I was sitting, I was driving. My really good friend at the time was in the passenger seat. No, I'm sorry. He was not in the car at this point. He was in the car the next night. I was alone, and I just dropped off our guitar player. And this long winding road, 301, it's near Cold Spring, New York. And the fog was settling in, and it's mountains on either side of you. And up ahead in the darkness, I saw this triangle. I thought it was a helicopter, and it had three, I believe they're blue blinking lights. Like you've heard of, other people tell us these stories with triangles that they've seen. I immediately, after thinking the helicopter, I turned. What in turn is like a winding road, so you appear to have a different point of view because you're here now, you're left, you're right, and the thing appeared to move. And I said, "Whoa, that is moving very strange, hovering just above the mountain." And the fog made it really like this pulsating, was taking up the whole sky like a lightning storm. But there was no sound. And as I was getting closer, I'm like, man, this is actually huge. What is this thing? And as I got right up to where it was above me in the car, I was driving, as a matter of fact, the Volvo that I told you about earlier this week that I smashed into a deer. Deer smashed into me. And I had a sunroof. And I saw it through the sunroof. And it was this giant black triangle in the fog floating above the mountain and with its lights blinking. And I stopped. I was like paralyzed, and then I bounced real quick. And I went and I was picking up my sisters. My two little sisters were at a friend's house. I walk in there, and I'm like, I just saw a UFO. I was not one to say things like that, and I was telling them exactly what I just told you. Everyone was like, holy crap. And I went and got my friend the next day, and he sat in my passenger seat. It's still foggy, same hour at night, driving back, and I'm telling him like, dude, I don't think it's going to be there again. But sure enough, there it was, floating in the sky. And we're like, let's just go do it. Let's get up to it. I'm about to fight this thing. And it's there. And we park right below it, floating, and the fog clears, and it's a cell phone tower. And I, for like 24 hours, believed that I saw a UFO. I could have sworn it was a UFO, and it looked exactly like the triangle UFO. Maybe it was a UFO just cloaking itself as a cell phone tower. But after that experience, I was like, I know how easy it is for me at least to be tricked into thinking something is what it's not.
Maybe we need to rename this episode "Don't Do Drugs."
I wasn't on drugs at that point. Well, not at that day, actually. But at that point, I was doing some things I shouldn't have been doing, just not at that time. And it was crazy. So I totally believed like I saw something. And I'm glad I went back to have that confirmation of it being a cell phone tower. But I know that happens, but that's not to discredit all these stories also, because like I've said in previous shows, I have seen things like the orb in Georgia floating up and down. I cannot explain that, and I tried really hard to figure out what that was. And I think people see things that we just can't explain. Like the person who called the other day about the triangle, that's a weird one. It was moving. It was casting a shadow. They went after it. My thing was stationary up in the sky. So I don't know, man. I just saying all that to be like, I know to be skeptical, but I also believe there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in this world all the time, which is why I love doing this show so much, because we talk about all this weird stuff, ghosts and aliens, UFOs, secret tech, but it kind of like forms the foundation of how our perception of the world is, especially as the world seems so insane right now. No one knows anything. Everything's absurd. Everyone's lying to you. Like, dude, the other night, was it last night, when we pulled up the video of in Iran of them burning the American flag?
Yeah.
That was from like 6 years ago.
Really?
This morning I saw it again. It was like, fact check. This is from,
Yep.
which doesn't mean they're not all, like, I don't care
and
about Iran.
And we said that too, like full disclosure when we brought it up. We don't know when this was actually recorded. We just know that it's being played now to try to sway people into being like, oh shit, this is a threat.
Because those things like that is an encounter with something unexplained, right? And it's trying to warp your perception. It's trying to make you sympathetic to something that maybe you shouldn't be sympathetic to. Now, I'm not saying to be pro any of these countries. I don't like anybody. I like this country. I don't like the government. But I love this country. And I love the people. And I pray for innocent people all over the place. But like we talk about these stories because it's like the backbone of how we perceive ourselves in the world. Whether it's like what John was talking about with consciousness and ego death, to you seeing something strange in the woods you can't explain. It speaks to the overall experience on Earth that we just don't get. I mean, I like to think I know a lot, but I also know nothing at all. And I think that's okay. I think the more you find out, the more you learn. I just don't know anything. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the people who tell you they know exactly what's going on and they're the authority, you should be aware of those people, because they are lying to you, because no one knows. And everyone's trying to manipulate you. And we see it on Twitter constantly, like what we just talked about with the burning of the flag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all to gain views too. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
Just the most shallow reason, but
oh man, yeah. The clickbait is killing me. It is just killing me. It's so annoying, but it's bound to happen. It's inevitable, and I think that is another conversation for another day. But like the monetization of Twitter certainly hasn't helped that, and now everyone is TMZ plus like a war correspondent. But like some of them don't even live in this country, and they're in some other place in the basement talking about foreign policy and what we should be thinking in this country, which is bewildering. But man. Yeah, I guess we'll have to, the people who we didn't get to, if there's anyone queued up, we'll hope you call back next week. The person who couldn't call in because of the mic issue, try next week to call in. We'll be back Monday, 10 o'clock. I'm sorry to cut this one short, but I'm going to float on down to the great state of Florida for the Bohemian Grove show with all those fun guys, Sam Tripoli, Owen Benjamin, and the Nephilim Death Squad. It should be an interesting weekend there. It's 2 days. It's going to be great. Sam is headlining one day, Owen the next day. So it's going to be a lot of fun, humor, a lot of talking about reality. Both those guys have also been on this show. Well, all those guys have been on this show. Owen's been on twice. Sam's been on once, and I highly recommend looking at those episodes. I find both their perspectives really, really interesting, and the Nephilim guys also. Always great talking to them. So I'll be looking forward to hosting that show. And am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the end of week 3 with our new schedule, and it has been really, really fun. We're so glad you're joining us. We thank you for liking, subscribing, for sharing the show. I have been inundated with messages. I promise you I'll be getting back to you. I'm getting through it. But people, they want to know about calling in. They want to share stories. Keep doing it. Hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. That's been the easiest, I think, for people when they want to just run a story by me. There's never really a theme to the show. So like we're willing and open to talk about anything as it comes up, whatever sparks your imagination. And we'll be back next week, 10 o'clock. And the link will be pinned in the chats. Brandon, you want to tell them where to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Brando Inverted on Instagram and X. Don't forget to tune in Monday and Tuesday and catch Alex Ayala in the chair. I know she'd love to see some of you guys, so show her some love. And I will be back hopefully Wednesday and talking normally, but we will see about that. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to stay weird.
Yeah, man. I hope you heal up fast. It is never fun doing the dental stuff.
Oh, it sucks.
I've been there. But we're stoked to have Alex back, and it's going to be great to have her in the room again. And you can find me at Shane Cashman everywhere online. And looking forward to coming back on Monday and seeing you guys. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.